Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm going to take a look at Dune House Secrets by Portal Games. This is a interactive story kind of game for 1 to 4 players, which plays in about an hour per chapter. There's 3 chapters in the box and a prologue for ages 14 and up. Before I dive in, I'd like to point you towards my Patreon page. If you'd like to support what I do, you can do so for as little as just €1 per month or more, which is greatly appreciated, very much helps the channel, and most importantly is to hit that subscribe button, because a lot of views that I get are from non-subscribers, so there's a lot of room for my channel to grow, and that would really help a lot. All right, let's start with setting up the game. To set up the game, Dune's House Secrets, just take your time track card, which has the consequence track on the bottom. The other side is just for the final chapter, which has a victory point track, but choose this side for the first chapters and the prologue, and put the consequence tracker on spot 4 all the way on the left. Pick the chapter you're playing. If you're playing the prologue, you just need these cards, and they are numbered with a 001 up to 010. So all the cards starting with a 0 are the prologue. You take those cards, you just put them on the table nearby. If you're playing chapter 1, you'll have cards that have a 1, so those are the hundreds, and chapter 2 has the 200s, and so forth, and the third chapter as well. So you take the cards that you need, put those nearby. You can put the other ones back in the box. Keep the top card on. You only read the first card or any card when you're told. You also have this asset deck. These smaller square cards also has one cover card. I'll show you some. So when the game tells you to pick up any of these letters from the asset deck, you just search for that and you pick it out and you can place it on the table. Some have something on the back, usually a bit of text, so you can flip it over. This icon indicates that they have some information on the back. Otherwise, there's just no icon on the bottom right. So just keep those nearby and take the cards whenever needed. Select which character you're playing. If you're playing 4 players, everybody will pick a character. So there's 4 different ones. And if there are less than 4 players, the other characters are still in the game, but you flip them over to their advocate side, which it says here on the left. And there's a small difference here. The regular characters will start with 1 token of their color, and they can also change any 2 resources for 1 resource of their color during the game. And if you have any advocate characters, they will start with 2 tokens of their color, but that's only at the start of the game, because when you go to the first, second and third chapters, you keep what you gathered during that chapter, and you know, if you spent tokens, then those are gone. So you can simply keep all the tokens somewhere nearby, and then before you start, in this case with the prologue, just give every character their token, or if they are advocates, 2 tokens. Also take the consequence tokens. There's 5 of them. 2 have a green side and 3 have a red side. Just flip them over and shuffle them a bit and keep them on the table nearby. You will be choosing from those during the game on certain cards that tell you to pick a token which might have consequences. You can put the map of Arrakis that comes with the game on the table as well, which is a nice reference that kind of tells you where everything takes place. And there's also a map of Tel Gezir, the city where most of the story takes place, and you can keep that nearby as well. And finally, from the chapter leaves, there's the prologue, 1, 2, and 3 chapters. Take the chapter you're playing, and then one of the players can read that out loud, and on the back it will tell you the rest of the setup. So in this case, it tells you to put the time track on 6. So you take the time track token, put it on spot 6 in this case. And it will also tell you, hey, these are asset cards you take. So you take asset cards A, B, and P, and the map of Arrakis, of course. And you start with 2 encounters, number 5 and number 8. So you take those from the encounter deck, and then you can start playing. Let's explain the rules. So after you've set up the game and took all your tokens and set up the time track and the consequence track, and you took the assets that you need, you can start the game, and the mission goals will tell you what you need to do in this chapter. Here, your primary goal is to find out why the settlement was attacked, and additional, find out what happened to Zarzur's unit. So that's all explained in this bit of prologue here, what you read before you start. And then you can take special rules, assets P, A, and B, and the map of Iraq is over there, and to encounter cards. So you simply take those from the asset deck here. So you have card A, card B, and card P here. And as you can see, these cards have this logo here with an arrow and a card. It means you flip over the card. So you flip over the card and there's some text. And one of the players can read that out loud to the rest of the players. There were also some encounter cards. So we got cards 5 and 8 here. So you simply read that as well. It's mostly an interactive story. Now this also has this icon. So once you read that, you flip it over and there are some more options here. So let's take a look at those. This tells you, you can look at card 7 and read that. It tells you what happens, but you need to spend a red resource token. So if you have one of those, it's this one in this case, you need to just discard that, remove from the game, and then you can flip, or you take card 7 and read what it does. Same here for this purple token. That's card 6. You take that card. If you decide to do this, you pay that, and you don't have to. This is optional. And then this one is basically free. You get card 4 and you read what it does. Simple as that. This card, for example, once you read that, you get card 2. You can read that and continue the story, but you can also follow some person called Era to continue the conversation. This has this icon on it, so a consequence token, and then you flip over the card. So if you decide to do this, you need to draw one of those consequence tokens. And when you do, you simply pick one and flip it over. If it's a red one, you lose one spot on the consequence track. And then you just flip it over again, put it back, shuffle the tokens. If it's a green one, like this, then nothing happens to the consequence track. It stays where it was, but you remove this one from the game for now. Until you draw on a next encounter, you draw another red one, then basically the pool is reset. You take the green ones back and you put them all back on the table. The encounter cards can also instruct you, instead of taking a card with a number from the encounter deck, they can also have a letter on them, and whenever it's a letter, that means one of these cards in the asset deck, which are numbered A or lettered A through W. Now every time you read an encounter card, a new card, not flipping them over, just reading a new encounter, you need to advance the time track one spot to the right. So that means in the prologue, you only have 6 encounters, basically 6 turns that you can take to finish your missions. It says here that is 6, so that's the amount of time you have. And once you reach spot 3, it says deliberation. It's basically a warning that you need to start to think about what else do you still want to do. We have 3 turns left and we need to find stuff out. Do we know everything we want to know? Did we fulfill our mission goals? And then just this, you will be discussing the game throughout every card, every decision you make. But this is when time starts to get, pressing. And then, of course, once the time track hits 0, then you need to make a status report. And the status report takes place on the website. There's a website on the Portal Games page that basically helps you through the game, and sometimes a card will also reference that. So for example, on this card you'll see that this feather or this quill with number 8 will teach you about House Gennick. So whenever you see that or a book icon, you take the app, and it's located on, I'm sorry for the interference, on let's see, Dune.playdetective.online. I'll put a link in the description. So once you're there, you can check the page and you can hit the prologue button, And then it will have a little movie there which you can play, and then after that you can continue. Just hit continue. There's the intro, there's the picture that we also saw on asset card A. And this icon here, this book, means that's a film book. And you can enter the film book number there. So that's the number corresponding on the card. So if a card has that icon with number 8, you press in number 8 and you search that film book number. If it has a quill, you enter that number here. So like we saw on this card over here, this has the quill with a number 8. So you enter number 8 and then it will search that bit of history. And you basically read what it says on the website as well. And when, like I said, the time track hits 0, you need to do the status report. You just hit that button and then it will ask you if you're sure, you can continue. And then the app will ask you several questions which you need to answer collectively. It's multiple choice, and depending on how well you did, you get some points at the end. So let's just, for example, put in 8 here and search. All right, I need to apparently put in 008. So let's have a look. 008. And there you go. There's a little video history 008. You click that and it'll play it, and then you can return. So that's how that works. At the end of the game, you've done your status report for that chapter. You can check how well you did. If there are any points left on the consequence track, so let's say it's at 2, that means you gain 2 experience. There's a experience sticker sheet in the box, and you can spend 1 XP to get any of those assets, I guess, these skills, or you can spend both to get this skill. And you can take them off, and you can, if you want, stick them on one of your characters. They have 3 slots here, one for level 1, one for level 2, and one for level 3 of those skills. These are level 1, these are level 2, and these are level 3. You get some after the prologue, after chapter 1, and after chapter 2, and then you play chapter 3, which is the last one. So you can get those, and you can cross them off once you've used them. The back of the rule book also has a bit of a progress sheet where you can keep track of the number of these resource tokens you have during the prologue or at the end of every chapter. You can take a few notes there. There are some lines that you can write down. You can write down the numbers of the cards that you've read if you want to. And should you have to stop playing in the middle of a chapter, then you simply take all of these encounter cards that you've encountered so far, along with the asset cards that you've encountered. Just keep those apart in a Ziploc bag or whatever, along with the tokens that you still have. And what we used to do, we just took a picture of the table and everything that was on there, and you just store that, and then next time you can just continue where you left off. That's very simple. And that is basically all you need to know about how to play Dune House Secrets. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Dune House Secrets. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Let me start with the components. Some components are okay, are good. We've got these consequence tokens. You have 5 of these, and they're just your basic cardboard. They're fine. They have the red and the green sides on them, and you just put them on the table with this logo on top so you don't see what they are. You have these stickers, and when you upgrade your character, you can stick them on your card on either side. Yeah, I would advise not doing that. It's a legacy element that's just put in the game to probably just reduce the after sales, secondhand market. You can just write down whatever you chose after every chapter. You don't need to stick them on this and at least have some resellability. So it seems a bit pointless. Those could have been just cards that have just printed cards. All of these could have been printed cards that you hand out and that you keep separate from the rest, just like your chapter cards and your these asset cards, which I will touch on in a bit. But yeah, so you have these character cards. These are okay. They're nice. They're, you know, a thicker paper with some UV spot on it, and it looks okay. But one side is your character, if you're playing this character, and the other side is the advocate. This is the advocate side, the light one, and this is the player side. And the regular side says, hey, you start with one token. In this case, you get a spice token, so that's these. Also fine tokens, you get a handful of those. You get one punch board full of these resource tokens that you use, and they're fine, they're nice and colorful. And this character gets one spice token, and at any time this character can exchange 2 resource tokens for 1 spice token. On the other side, it says, hey, you begin with 2 spice tokens, and that's it, you can't exchange. All right, I guess. And then that's the same for all of them, but this one gives you water, this one gives you subterfuge, the purple token, and this one gives you the weapon tokens, the red ones. So you have all of these. You have the blue one, the red one, the yellow one, which is spice, and the purple subterfuge tokens. So you have all of those. So at the start of the game, you take 1 of each, or if you're using advocate tokens, you take 2 of whatever character that is. And there's also a green token, which is the wild and can be used for anything. I mean, okay, but that is literally all that these character cards do. But that's more gameplay, and I'll touch on that in a bit. The card itself is fine, and you have these spots where you can put the stickers, but we didn't. Obviously, we just wrote down what happened, so at least the game can be resold again. You get a little leaflet with Telgezer on it, which is nice. It's a nice handout. You can put it on the table. Has the city on it with all the districts in text on them. It's just single side, the other side, but it's just paper. It's literally just printer paper, so it's very thin. Be careful with it. You get these asset cards, which are square little cards with pointy edges. Careful with those, because that's going to wear quickly. They're also normal card quality, not the thickest, and they are lettered. So you have A through W, and they're in the corner here. And you pick those up during the game, and well, I guess they're fine. These cards are nice. They're nice and big, these chapter cards. And you take the chapters that the cards that you need, and they're numbered nicely. The prologue has 001, 002, everything starting with a 0, and then starting from chapter 1, it's 100 and 102, and chapter 2 has the 200s, and chapter 3 has the 300s. That's very clear, well done, and there's no art on them. It's just text. Those cards are fine. They're also of a standard decent card quality with a glossy finish. Looks nice. You do get a map of Dune, Arrakis, which is a nice looking map. And well, it's double-sided, so you can. No, it's not double-sided, so you can just put it on the table, and you know, it shows you where you are. It's not really necessary. It's just a little bit of background, I guess. But that's what you get, and this is basically your time track. So you have this wooden token, which is nice wooden token. You put that on there, and it'll tell you where to start for each chapter, how many turns you have, how many time you have. And then you have this green Atreides token, which you put on the bottom. And every time you have a consequence that's not green, if you have the red ones, you lose 1 point. And again, it tells you where to start on the track at the start of each chapter. And if you have any left, then you can have some experience for unlocking these skills. So the components, well, there's not a whole lot. The game is basically these cards and these asset cards. And the box is way too big for that. That's a minor point that I have here. This is the insert. You can put the big cards here, the small cards here. There's another slot for big cards. They've announced an expansion, you know, more chapters, so I guess you could put them in the main box as well. This is where you throw your tokens, and there's a dedicated spot for these wooden tokens as well. But that's it. This is mostly air. There's nothing underneath. The box is way too big for what you get, and could have taken up much less shelf space. So, you know, that's... And then the final component of the game is the website. The website basically tells you what to read at the start of a chapter, and you have some audio books at some point, so some video books as they call them, and you basically click on a video which shows you some text. It's literally just a video that shows you some text, and that same text you can read on the page as well if you just scroll down. That video is the same in every chapter for every book, just the text is different. So it's totally unnecessary, and the page itself is just a simple website that goes through the chapters. There's not a whole lot there. Feels like that could have been more as well. So component-wise, it's a minimum effort. The tokens are fine and the cards are fine, but otherwise it's a minimum effort. And I feel they could have put a lot more in the box, or just made the box a lot smaller. And furthermore, if you pre-ordered this game when it came out, you got this, which I borrowed from a friend, because Portal Games was nice enough to hand me a copy to review, for which I am very thankful. But if you pre-ordered it, you got this. So let's take a look at those components. You got, and you can still buy the game online and get these. These are 4 promotional booklets of all the characters, and they have a bit of a backstory. So that's really all it is. It's just cardboard. You open it up, and there's their backstory, and it basically tells you how these 4 characters got to meet, how they get together in this story, and up to the prologue where the story really starts. And that's all that is, and I feel that should have been in the box from the start, because it's basically, it gives you some information about the character you're playing, but it's not in the retail box. So you have to order from their website, or you had to have pre-ordered it for, you know, to get these. These are not in the retail box, and I feel they should be. So that's weird. You also got 3 envelopes, one for each chapter, which you open before playing the chapter. So let's have a look. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything, because what you get is 4 thin pieces of paper with the 4 characters with the same art that you already saw in the core box on your character sheets, and on those story backgrounds here, same art. And on the back, it literally has 1 sentence. And that sentence is basically a bit of a hint to help you in the chapter you're playing. And that is it. That's all that's in the envelope. Second chapter, same thing. Third chapter, same thing. So what else did you get? For pre-ordering, you got these art prints. Really cool, really nice, thick paper, thick cardboard with a very nice glossy, as you can see, finish of some cool artwork. You get Tel Gezer, the city that you're in, the Owl Market in Tel Gezer, the Morgana's Tavern, another location on the map in Tel Gezer that you might visit, Sorko's estate, the governor, and you get the Ornithopter Port, another location. And that's just, it's beautiful, beautiful art, really cool. And they're basically just postcards. They're big postcards with an address line here. You can put your stamp here, you put your text here, and send that to someone, which is, I wouldn't do. But this nice artwork on these nice pieces of cardboard should have been in the box as well, because this is literally stuff from the game, locations in the game. These would have made awesome handouts to put on the table. Look, in this chapter, we're here. But you got them as a pre-order. And you also got a little note from Portal Games thanking you for pre-ordering it. You get a certificate that you're... thank you for your contribution to the success of Dune House Secrets. And what else you get? Oh, you get a big fold-out map of Arrakis, which is exactly the same as the one you got in the game, just bigger. This is just twice as big. I guess it's nice, but we already got this one. So, I mean, this is a nice gesture to thank people for pre-ordering it, but I do feel that at least these and these envelopes with your hint, just thin pieces of paper, and especially these background stories belong in the core box, especially for the price. This was 40 euros and they've now discounted it on their website for 34, but that's still a steep price to pay for what you're getting. And so basically those promos don't really add anything to the game. They just give you a little hint and that's it. So components, I wasn't really impressed. Artwork though, superb. The artwork is great. It's just a shame that not everything is in the core box. But the artwork is really nice. There's just not a whole lot of it on these cards. And you just have your characters. And you have the city. And that's mostly it. There you get the 4 chapter cards, which do have some artwork. You know, this is the prologue, tells you what happens. There's not much on the back, just how to set it up, really. Chapter 1, you read a bit of story, and again, it tells you how to set it up. Chapter 2, same thing. And in Chapter 3, last one, you get an additional map. So there is some beautiful artwork, but there's just not a whole lot of it, which is also a shame. Also, speaking of artwork, this box cover is fantastic. It has Paul Atreides, has Beast Raban, has Jessica, but none of those characters are in this game. They're not in the story. This is misleading. They talk about the Atreides, and there is actually one Atreides character that you meet in the game, but it's none of these. And they talk about Raban as well, but you don't meet him. He's just mentioned. So why put these characters on the cover? Because it's Dune, because people want this, because it's Dune. They've seen the movie, they like the books, this is why they buy the game. They should have put these 4 characters on the cover instead of these, then it would be truthful. A little bit of a sour thing there, but otherwise the art is really good. I just wish there was more of it, and all of these extras from that big envelope that, you know, pre-orders got would have been in the core box. Theme, it's fantastic. It's Dune, it's cool, it's science fiction, it's wonderful. This is basically a fan fiction. It's a piece of fan fiction that you play through, a little bit of interactive story there. You make some decisions, you have some consequences, which basically means that you get more or less victory points at the end of each chapter. But in the end, it doesn't really matter that much. This could have literally been a fan fiction for any theme, but they wrote it into Dune, and I guess that's nice. I did like the story, and I do enjoy the theme. It felt like Dune. I think they implemented the theme well, so I'll give that a thumbs up. Then the gameplay, I've already kind of hinted on how this game plays. You draw cards as the game tells you, and then you read those cards, which is great, gets you more story, and then you make a decision and you write down the information you get. We've kept some paper, still have the notes here, and you just write down what you find. But you need to do that because you find a lot of people, a lot of names that you need to remember, and some of those people you get on these cards. So you get like these asset cards. So the game will tell you, hey, you found this or that or this person, and look, this is the gate to Tel Gazir. This is where you enter. Okay, there's a little bit of text on the back, which is nice. Again, a little bit of fluff, a bit of story, and that's cool. I like that. So you put that on the table. Sometimes it'll tell you, oh, look, you see this character with a little bit of text on the back again. And sometimes it'll tell you, hey, when you have this, you can read card number 3 or whatever. So that's so far so good. At some point, you will find a card, hey, these are silhouettes, people, mysterious strangers. You don't know who they are, and there's no text on the back. which I guess makes sense because you need to figure out who these are or where they are. But they also do that for people that you actually meet, that you know the name of. You encounter a character and it tells you, the card tells you, hey, this is person X. And there's nothing on the back. There's no name on the card. There's nothing here. So you have this portrait and that's it. And every time you speak about this person, you're like, oh, was that card L? Was that this character again? So you need to literally write down, hey, we encountered card L, which is this person, who is head of this and that, or is a partner of this and that person, or linked to this and that. So you need to write that out. That could have been on the cards. There's some locations, that's all fine. Some, like I said, have, but it's like the key characters that are part of the story have no text on the back. Why not? Why didn't it put the name on these cards and a little bit of an introduction of where you met them or whatever? They could have put that on the cards. There's room for it. But no, you have to write everything down. And because it's Dune and science fiction, they have these outlandish names that are hard to remember. And there are many people with the same surnames. So you need to keep them apart. There's a lot of writing to do. Now, I'm not against that per se, but the game could have helped you a little bit with that. There was certainly room for it on the cards. So you're writing a whole bunch of things down, and it does feel like a detective game, so that's good. I enjoyed the original detective game a lot, and this tries to be that as well, but this game is more on rails. And in the end, it doesn't really matter what you do. At the end of each chapter, you get questions on that website and you need to answer them. But they're pretty obvious. And some might not be. Some you do need some clues for, which I'm sure you'll find when you play the story. And, you know, if you make use of the time you have, and then you'll get some XP. So now the XP tells you, well, you can pick. After the first chapter, you have these, second chapter, or the prologue, first chapter, and second chapter. And you can gain stuff. So you can get a sticker that gets you an extra resource in the first chapter. Or you can have haggling, which lets you exchange a resource for any other. Or you can get time for 2 XP. You can get extra time. You move the time spacer, this red one space up again, which is obviously the best thing to do. Then in the second chapter, you get 2 resources if you choose that upgrade, or again, haggling, or another time. We took the time both times. And then in the third chapter, you get this, unlimited number of resources for one color. So if you can get that, just one of those 4 resources, and they have 4 stickers with unlimited number, it doesn't matter because your characters can exchange 2 resources for one of their color. So having just one of those upgrades gets you unlimited resources of everything. That does not make sense at all. It feels utterly broken. It's just very strange. So if you get a lot of XP, you're basically limitless in the third chapter. You can do all the cards. There's basically no consequences. So in the end, it is just that. It's an interactive story. It's an interactive novel, an experience, a bit of fan fiction. I liked the story, but there's not much to do here. It's enjoyable. It's an experience. Then there's the replayability. Inherent to these type of games, there is no replayability. It's a one and done game, just like Detective was. They are making expansions for this, so you can have more chapters to play, which is interesting. But, given the price, I feel that the 3 chapters and the prologue, so 4 chapters that are in this box, is a bit meager for €34. Also, given the components, it's just not really worth the money unless you're really a big fan of the detective games and Dune. The Dune franchise. Again, we did enjoy the story, but it feels a bit cheap. It feels like they've spent their entire budget on the licensing and some part on the art, And then they just had to make do with the rest of that budget for all the writing. And I guess the story was fine, but it's on rails and there's not a whole lot of decision making to do. So, you know, it feels kind of, I don't know, unfinished. This could have been better. This could have been more, it feels lacking. Finally, the language dependency. This is, of course, a heavily, text-heavy game. It's a story-driven game. So there is 100% language dependency, but that's inherent to these kind of games. Really just like the replayability. So I can't really fault it on that. It's not getting negative points for that. It's just inherent to the game. You know that when you're buying the game. So that's fine. It's just something you need to take into account. If you want to buy this game, this is in English. And there are also several other languages available as well. So make sure to get your language. And that is basically it. It's an experience. I don't think it's worth the price point. The stickers are an attempt to, make the aftermarket smaller, but just don't use the stickers. Just write it down and then sell it again afterwards. If you really want to play this game, I do recommend picking it up secondhand for half the price or something. It is enjoyable. It's just a bit, they cut corners, I think, and that's a shame. I would love to see them do better next time, and I liked the game, and I would like to see the expansions. I'm not just planning on paying full price for those. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll pick the expansions up secondhand. I don't know. Maybe they're willing to donate them to the channel for review again, but I don't know. After this review, they might not, because I did receive the game for reviewing purposes, for which I am thankful, Portal Games. I do appreciate that a lot. I just felt a bit disappointed with the game, is all. Well, having said that, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. That really helps the channel. And if you want to support me financially, check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.